everyone. I'm Ruthie Sloan, Marketing Specialist for Revolution Group, and I will be your host today for our discussion on lean manufacturing. Just a note, we will have a Q&A session at the end of our webinar today, so feel free to submit questions throughout the presentation. Just type them in the control panel on your screen. We will do our best to answer all of the questions at the end. For those of you who do not know us, Revolution Group is a Central Ohio-based technology solutions provider founded in 1995. Our partnerships with Plex, Salesforce, and Microsoft allow us the expertise and resources necessary to facilitate our customers' growth. We have been extremely successful in helping our customers leverage technology to revolutionize their supply chains and improve their businesses. I'm pleased to welcome Josh Long, ERP consultant with Revolution Group, who will be discussing the Lean Six Sigma process of DMAIC. And now I'm going to hand things over to Josh.
Thank you, Ruthie. Before coming to Revolution Group for the last 18 years, I've lived in manufacturing floors and environments, and I'm sure that many on this call we can probably create small therapy groups around issues we have in our organizations, like inventory accuracy, late shipments, material shortages, many of us with high employee turnover, and what kind of impact those have on our business and our day-to-day jobs. There we go, sorry about that. And I think that many of us who understand we have these issues, like equipment downtime and inventory accuracies, that these are chronic issues that just about everyone in our organization is aware of. I'm sure all of us have sat in many meetings where we've discussed them. Progress is slow to non-existent, really, to get to our fixes. A lot of us think we know what the problem is, but few actually feel they can do anything about it. Mainly, that centers around not having a real plan of action or strategy on how to tackle these issues from a broader standpoint. We can all agree that we want better results, but we sometimes cannot agree on what is better and what are results. For example, if you're a stockholder in a company, your results mean profits to you. In production, results mean more parts to us. In shipping, it's always time. Never get the parts fast enough, and the customers always want it yesterday. And quality kind of lives in a world of defects. We really struggle on how to improve in these areas because we really have a hard time stating our motivations. Or struggling to really personalize it to where everyone from the front office to the shipping dock can personalize how this impacts their job and what impact they have on the problem overall. And then trying to find why our customers care. We always get into this scenario where getting parts out the door is the paramount goal, but we forget that there are other priorities or other things that customers value, like having parts at the cheapest price possible and on time. Where we really got to think stronger is to think broader to our problems, start connecting dots. And I always like to throw this connect a dot up there. In case you wonder what that is, that's an elephant, and we'll talk a little bit about that. So as an ERP consultant, and I'm sure many in this room, if you manage ERP systems, you've heard this statement before about fixing the system. Typically, this means to fix the ERP system, and that's really where a lot of companies focus on how to fix our system, and it's kind of limiting right out of the gate. So we should be thinking a little broader about how to improve our strategy to doing our jobs. We're very good at putting together our steps on how to produce parts. Maybe some of you are really good at putting together the strategy how to improve our processes, but I'm going to bet that many of our organizations really struggle with a defined methodology behind process improvements. For example, when we look at our strategy, it should be pretty broad. We should be looking across the board at our people, our suppliers, including our tools like ERP, but more importantly, our processes, and in the end, our customers. So today we're going to talk about Lean Six Sigma and what it is. We'll just start out. So Lean Six Sigma is a culture change in an organization. It's a strategy, a plan of action to continually improve. The effort behind Lean is to reduce waste, and Six Sigma is to reduce variations. And many organizations, including my background, coming to Lean and Six Sigma through the supply chain with GE, is combining these efforts to focus on the entire value stream, not only on manufacturing floors, but from order entry to cash collection. And with Lean, I'm sure we've all heard the buzzwords, because Lean is often described as a toolbox. And we've heard the buzzwords like 5S, we've heard the buzzwords like Kaizen. But I don't know if anyone sitting on the call could really knows what is the strategy of a good Kaizen event, or how can we connect the dots between the Kaizen event and the actual improvements on our floor. So we got to start with some questions. Which one of these tools do we use? Which ones are important, and where do we start? And the where do we start is what we're going to talk about today. So DMAIC is a strategy that was developed specifically through Six Sigma, but in general it can be used across the board for process improvements. I use this quite a bit with manufacturing companies to look broader than just the ERP system to all the impacts on their process. One of the most key components of DMAIC is that it is data-driven. And that's crucial because opinions can run wild in an organization. Opinions can be very biased. So getting down to the same language and our data with our metrics allows us to really focus on the same language in the end result. So specifically, what is DMAIC? So it's a 5-step approach, pretty linear in thought, working from D to our define phase to our control phase. A lot of times there are some overlaps, and we're going to talk about that here in a little bit. But just the overview, using this graphic, the D in DMAIC is define. It's the first stage in the process improvement where we discuss what the issue is. We discuss the scope of our project and who should be involved. Typically, defining the problem can be quicker and is probably one of the easier steps in this process. From there, we move to measure. The measure point of the stage is where we start getting on the same page, and we start really collecting what data is available. We're mapping our process, and the goal of the measure phase is to start really getting at the data, getting on the same page. And then we move on to analyze, which is where we analyze that data, and we start putting some thought to root causes. Then the improve phase is where we really dive into where the shovel hits the dirt. The improve phase is probably the longest portion of DMAIC. It's where we spend a lot of time actually on the floor or in our offices, wherever the process is focused on putting together small improvements and building upon larger improvements. And the final and the most complicated process of any lean effort and any process improvement is control. It's the last phase there. It's important to put into place what worked from our improve phase, to document it, and to find some real efforts how we're going to sustain it and use accountability to hold each other accountable. All right, so if we spend some time, I'm going to go through each one of these steps again with one slide and then some real-world examples that we can talk about. So one of my favorite quotes at the top of that is from Charles F. Kettering. It's my interest in the future because I'm going to spend the rest of my life there. It's kind of important in the first stage of defining our problem is that we don't spend too much time talking about the past. The past has put us in the room together, but we really got to focus on what the problem is, how we're going to move forward. The define phase, we really got to narrow in on a team. Not everybody's going to be able to come to the table and have an impact on this project. So we really got to narrow in on a team of people who are going to do the work and hold each other accountable. This includes thinking outside of just management, diving right into process owners and even operators on your floor and bringing them on board. In the define phase, it's important to go around the room and make sure everyone understands how this project is going to impact them and how the end improvements will impact them too, individually and as a group. Make sure people are stating their motivations and really diving into the customer, the end result. What is the impact to them? It's also important in the define phase is to really narrow the project. I like that slide there about how do we eat an elephant one bite at a time. So what that comes down to is I'm just going to use this pretty basic example throughout this presentation about machine uptime. So many of us have come up with have had face this problem in the real world, the machines are just down too much. We could have a lot of machines. Let's say in this example, we can have 50 different machines, 20 punch presses, CNCs, case erectors. Those are very different machines. They operate differently. Skill levels are different. Maintenance techniques are going to be different. So it's important when we scope our goal in a define phase to really get specific. So we could narrow it down to just say we're going to improve equipment uptime in our press department, and that really narrows our focus to the press department, but it still leaves us open to define what improvement is. So we've got to make sure we get real specific with our goals. For example, here, the goal is very simple, to achieve 90% uptime in our press department. That way we know if we get to 90 or better, we were successful, and we're not going to be confused if we only get to 85 if we were successful or not. Once we have the project scoped and defined and team selected, the very next important phase typically happens in the conference room again, which is the measurement phase. We're going to start mapping the process out, using visual aids to really get everyone on the same page on how this process flows. It's very important we look at our flow charts and our process maps to get into the details. We can have a box on a flow chart, for example, say we receive product, but many of us will probably know through a receiving function that receiving product has a lot of variables and a lot of exceptions, and our process map should really get into those details on what these exceptions are. We're going to start identifying some sources of variation, and it may even become necessary to redefine the team once we get a process map together because we missed having a key player from one of the departments. It's important in this phase that we make sure we don't react. It's very easy to get a process map together and then notice that we don't like how this is currently working and want to try to dive straight into solutions. But at this point, we've got to focus just on the measurements and collecting our data. There will be time to drive into root cause and solutions later. It's very important to define what our metrics are, gather our key reports. That's going to keep everybody on the same page. And it's also important to reach outside your walls as necessary. What that means is don't be afraid to hire professionals, not just consultants like myself, but if there's professionals in the industry or in the specific realm of the problem you're trying to tackle. Also, outside influence can come maybe from companies in your area who do similar things, or companies in your corporate structure that have tackled this problem before you. And then in the measurement phase, it's really important to define some expectations around meetings and emails. Whenever we get into large project improvement, the emails always seems to be the way everybody wants to communicate. It can I cannot stress the value enough on getting people together out on the production floor or out in wherever the area you're focusing on, and getting outside the email. So a real-world example here, again, if the goal is to achieve 90% uptime in our press department, at the measurement phase, we're really going to have to start working how do we define uptime, and how do we measure this uptime. In the measurement phase, we're starting to collect our reports, and we're meeting on this frequently to make sure that we trust this data. And we're recording and documenting the process. I mentioned in the beginning, there's a lot of Lean Six Sigma tools in the toolbox. It's important when you have that strategy that when you start defining these problems, some of these tools start becoming very relevant, and it gets a little clear on how to use them, like the Pareto charts and histograms and control charts. So we're going to move on into the analyze phase. The analyze phase of this process is where we're really coming together as a team to look for root causes. So the goal here is to identify the potential root causes, walk through the process. What I mean by that is that when you start putting it in the conference room and you put together your process maps and your flow charts, get out on your floor, get out in the offices, get out to wherever the problem is, and confirm that. Too often, leaders will sit in the conference room and think they understand the process and be very, very surprised when they get to the floor and realize that their expectations didn't meet the reality on the floor. Start formulating answers. It's okay at this phase to really start asking why, get to the root cause, dig below the status quo. Again, bring someone else on the team that has open mind. It's very easy when we live in these processes every day. Let's say if we're the maintenance guy living in the maintenance world, it's very easy to just accept status quo, that this is how we do business, and it really starts to limit us. So really use the 5 whys. Think through the decisions before you try to react. but it's very important at this phase to not let indecision win the day. Sit in the conference room, have the conversations, but have the right leadership in there that says, okay, it's time to go. So a real-world example of how to analyze data. It's very easy to start collecting data and say our machines are up 50% of the time. But really using something simple like the 5 whys allows us to start diving into why is it broke, why is it down? Is it broken? It could be out of material. We could have an operator shortage or even infrastructure problems. So use the 5 whys and dive into the who, what, when, and where. And as we start to define the who, what, when, and where of why this machine is broken, it's very easy then to move into the next phase and start knocking out real-world examples. Real-world improvements. And this is the improvement stage. So the goal of this phase is really to identify and implement solutions to the problem. We've defined the problem, we've collected our data, we've analyzed, and we've gotten down to 5 or 6 root causes that we want to tackle. And it's important here in the improved stages to start piling some of those small improvements. Don't try to tackle world hunger on your floor all at once. Start focusing on certain machines or certain areas. Address low-hanging fruit too, quickly. There's nothing that improves the morale of a team than to get some achievements right out the gate. So when we sit here and we analyze our data, we're going to notice some low-hanging fruits, some very easy improvements to get implemented. So go ahead and allow the team to get those done, start getting some success under their belt, and build on to bigger improvements. At this phase, we're also going to develop and document SMART goals. I'm going to talk about that here in a minute. And I encourage everyone to embrace technology at this phase and how to track projects using project management tools, something as simple as Excel or your ERP systems to track your improvements and your goals. It's very important in the improvement phase that we set SMART goals. And if you don't know what SMART goals are, so every task that goes on our improvement list should be very specific on the who, what, when, where, why, and which way we're going to do it. It should be measurable, meaning that whatever improvement we make, we should be able to relate it back to our metrics and our measurables from the second phase. Attainable, some realistic goals there. You know, everyone would say the quickest way to fix machine downtime issues is go out and buy all new machines, but that's not going to be very attainable. We got to make sure our goals are relevant. It's very easy to get sidetracked on side projects. We want to keep those on the back burner and really focus on our relevant goals. And everything should be scoped timely. Everything should have a deadline that when it should be done. And it shouldn't be just tomorrow. We got to think long term and be realistic with those times. So at this point in Lean, again, there's a lot of buzzwords and toolbox items we can use in the improvement phase. 5S is a word thrown around a lot when it comes to maintenance and machine times. Standard work, error-proof and poke-yoke. These are all buzzwords, and it's very easy to want to handpick these or cherry-pick these in the beginning. But at this point in the project, once we've measured it, we're on the same page, and we've got improvements together, we should be able to really start picking these tools, laying all the tools out on the table, all the hammers, and decide what hammer is going to be best to get this job done. For example, in this real-world example of improving machine uptime, so once we've identified our root causes and we start targeting our solutions, we can then hold a Kaizen event on a specific machine and start developing preventive maintenance programs, for example, on that machine. Start developing routines and processes on how to stock spare parts appropriately in our stocking cages. Or we can implement and-on lights as another tool to know when that machine is up and down and how to better communicate when that machine is down so that maintenance can jump on that as soon as possible. I mentioned about embracing technology using our task lists. We want to make sure we put together our task lists. We save it someplace out in our environment where everybody can get to it. We've got to be very specific on these SMART goals. Again, have a date when you add it. What is the very specific task? I always promote and encourage people to use the OPR, the one person responsible for a task. There's nothing worse than putting a task on there and saying that 6 people is going to do it, and everyone keeps pointing fingers that think that someone else is doing it. So have that one person who has the authority to either do the work themselves or delegate to get it done. Always scope it down and have a due date. Make sure that when you have a task that you do put down who it impacts so that we can communicate when these improvements are going to have an impact on them. And keep track of when these are done. A key part in this phase 2 is having a communication plan. So where is this document going to be saved? How often is it going to be reviewed? And who's in charge of the list? I always encourage people to have one person be the project manager of the project or the problem we're trying to tackle. And they make sure that the communications and the meeting rooms are assigned, the times are picked, and everybody is available. The last portion of this project is the control phase. This is where a lot of companies struggle. We spend so much time just getting parts out the door, for example, that we barely have enough time to put the improvements in place. And then even once we get some improvements on the floor or in shipping or in the office, we come back and find out a week later that they quit doing it because they're either time constrained or someone's changed jobs or whatever the excuse there. We spend a lot of time in Lean Six Sigma on control. And when we dig in here in this phase, we're going to make sure we have the metrics posted and available so everybody can see it. We have control plans in place, training schedules, and budgets to make sure we control it. We want to update our process map. We create our process map in the beginning. One of the control phases is updating it, and that could be used in future training. And if we seem to vary off course, it can be used to regroup us. It's very important the control phase, and I see a lot of people dropping the ball here, is our monitoring plans. We've got to audit all our improvements for a period of time. So that trust is trusting that they're getting done, but verifying it's actually happening. So auditing our preventive maintenance programs and auditing it long before an ISO auditor or QS auditor show up and we cram to get it all done the night before they show up. We should have our own internal auditing program. We should have regular status meetings. Don't just wait till something's broke to talk about it and fix it again. Schedule quarterly or even yearly meetings to talk about sustaining and making sure that you're sustaining these results. And have trigger points and corrective action plans. If we say that our goal was 90% uptime and we achieve 91%, have some trigger points that if that drops back down to 89, that someone's monitoring it and can trigger everyone to get back together to discuss how better to sustain our results. Here's a great example. We started in the beginning about the real-world example of equipment uptime. I teach people quite a bit how to implement PM programs and how to audit those programs to make sure that the preventive maintenance is being done, not just being checked off on a checklist, but verifying that people are checking the fluids and the belts on the machines. Develop reaction plans. So what if we fall below 90%? Again, who's responsible, who's going to be involved in getting everyone back together? Crucial part of having a reaction plan is making sure that our metrics and dashboards are posted. So don't just post it on a corkboard in the front of your plant, but really drive your metrics down to the machine so you can walk right out to all 20 of those punch presses and going punch press to punch press, how long that machine was up, how long the next machine was up. Develop your documents, your work instructions, your check sheets, and your process maps, and continually train. So often we have a lot of turnover in our environment, and we fail to really ensure that when new employees come on board that they're trained in these tools. And that's probably the number one killer of sustaining improvements, is that we do not train our new employees as they come through the door. We just take that for granted, and then the ball starts to get dropped. So again, overall, the strategy for DMAIC is that 5-step approach to define the problem, measure it, analyze your improvements, and then react to improve them. And once you get the improvements in place, control. I talked earlier about this is a very linear approach and it's a strategy used to develop continuous improvements. Things don't just happen. You don't just move from improve to control in one day. So keep an open mind about that. As you start to make improvements, we automatically start coming behind and putting controls to sustain those improvements so we can go on to the next improvement or build upon that improvement to go on to the next problem. Just a little ahead here, but just in closing with Lean Six Sigma. So one of my favorite quotes from the Art of War is that every battle is won before it's lost. And what Lean Six Sigma is going to do for you, and what DMAIC specifically will do, is help develop a strategy for us. For not only a strategy how to make parts, but a strategy how to make improvements for our business and culture overall. DMAIC allows us to, and gets us thinking broader than just our tools, getting out of our head that we must fix the ERP system, but thinking about all the root causes, all the cause and effects that we have, our processes, including our people, our suppliers, our customers, and tools have on our day-to-day business. So I hope that was just a brief overview of the fundamentals of Lean Six Sigma and where to start. If you're in the position where you're confused on if you should start with 5S, start with Kaizen events, or whatever buzzwords being thrown out there, I encourage you to start first with your strategy. Start first by defining your problems and using DMAIC to develop that strategy. So when you reach in that Lean toolbox, you know what hammer to pull out. So thank you, Ruthie.
Thank you, Josh. We're going to take questions. If anyone has any, again, please feel free to type those into the control panel on your screen. We have a question that came in. I see from your website that you work with Plex. Can you perform an assessment for an organization that doesn't utilize Plex as the ERP platform?
So absolutely. We do optimizations around Plex as a software, but we have a skill team of manufacturing experts. All of us have 15, 20 to 30 years of experience living in your shoes. One of the things that we can do is come on site and really assess wherever your trouble points are and bring a new, fresh set of eyes. I mentioned early on in that program about don't being afraid to reach out and seek professionals. We may not be able to have all the answers, but we can definitely bring a strategy and a fresh set of eyes to your problem.
Okay, good. Thank you. A question came in. Will we get a copy of the presentation emailed to the individuals that participated? Yes, I will be sending that out probably early next week. So look for that email to come, and there will be a link to the presentation on our website. We had a question come in. Can you please show us some of the Plex tools for Six Sigma? Unfortunately, we can't do that in this webinar. That requires a connection into the Plex online system. And I don't have that set up. So we would be happy to talk with you in more detail if you want to give us a call after the webinar is over, or get in contact with your ERP strategy consultant from Revolution Group, and they would be happy to talk with you about that. Another question came in about sharing the presentation. Absolutely, you're welcome to share it. Again, I'll send that out early next week, Monday or Tuesday, to everyone. And then you're welcome to share that link. It is being recorded right now, so that link will go out next week. Question for Josh: how long does a typical DMAIC effort take?
Well, that's going to depend on that first stage, that define phase, and what your project is and what your scope is. I've used this practically in manufacturing as a plant manager and engineer for many years, and projects can take a few weeks to months. I'm currently working with a client just to stay over on some inventory accuracy issues, and we've been working hard at it for probably 6 or 7 months now. Getting through the first few stages of defining and putting your measurements in place is the easy part, but you can live in that improvement phase, building your house there for months. It really depends on how big the project is and how deep into your culture it goes.
And again, we would be happy to talk with you in more detail. Just reach out to Revolution Group. We will get you hooked up with a ERP consultant. Josh is our de facto expert at the moment on Lean and is certified in Lean Six Sigma practices. We did get a message. Are you planning to do more of these webinars? Very good question, Marilyn. We certainly will look at today's webinar and what our attendance was and what the interest was, and we'll be scheduling some more, I would think, definitely. So you will get notifications from those just like you did for this one. I'll wait just a few more seconds to see if any more questions come in. Okay, question for Josh. As you mentioned, there's a lot of buzz out there about Lean. What makes Revolution Group unique?
So you're right. We have conversations internally about that all the time. There's a lot of ways to get Lean training. There's a lot of experts out there. We're really focusing on not training specific things for Lean. So what kind of makes us unique is that we want to work beside you on the actual problems, and we started right out the gate with that. Instead of coming to the solution that you should change your culture by implementing Lean, we're going to work with you to use Lean to improve your culture, specifically with like inventory accuracy, your equipment uptime. We, myself included, are someone with 20 years of experience running these operations, and what's unique to us is we understand the entire value stream. Our team is capable of handling Lean improvements from sales to shipping and even invoice and collection.
And actually, you answered the next question that came in. Do you have any recommendations for changing the culture to embrace Lean practice?
Yeah. So small wins. Starting out with what's one of those problems that we can work beside you with, and get some success. Just don't try to change the culture overall. Narrow the project in. A lot of people want to focus on manufacturing, but the snowball really starts the avalanche way up. So we can work with you in the office on part engineering or order entry and start getting some small improvements that we can start snowballing down the plan.
We have a very good webinar on our YouTube channel that we did last year about change management. The webinar approaches it specifically from an ERP implementation perspective, but it had a lot of really good general suggestions for how to manage change in your organization, how to change the culture of your organization. So if you're interested in learning more about that, go out to our YouTube channel and look for that webinar. Lots of good questions today. I don't see any more coming in. I'll wait just a couple more seconds here to see if any more pop up. Okay, I think that's all of our questions today. Thank you everyone for joining us. It was great to have you on the call. We would be happy, like I said, to talk with you if you want more information or want to talk about more specifics. So please reach out to us. Our contact information is on the screen. Thank you, Josh, for being with us today. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Have a great day.